Spoilers for the entirety of Bloodrayne, just a heads up. Yeah, that's snow alright. Bloodrayne is a hack-and-slash game released on October 31st, 2002 by Terminal Reality and Majesco Sales for GameCube, PlayStation 2, Xbox, PC and Mac computers. The IP was later bought by Zuckard, who had plans to revive the franchise with Terminal Reality.
How many cigarettes have you got on?
Re-releasing the game in 2020, producing both the Legacy Cut, or the original game, and Terminal Cut, a reworked version of the game for their own release. We'll be borrowing not just from Legacy and Terminal Cut, but from the Xbox prototype as well. Bloodrayne features a redhead heroine Dampier on a mission to find her father, Kagan, who she's been hunting down for years. Rayne's reasons are not explored in this title. She also isn't given much of a background or anything else, but we get a little bit of a feeling for her personality based on how she acts in-game. Rayne is a confident and witty individual, she knows she's powerful, and she knows what to do with her abilities.
I'm just confident in my abilities.
Rayne is beautiful and very sexualized in her appearance. I quite like it. The sexy nature of the character's clothing just seems to fit the game overall, even if it may truthfully be distasteful. In the introductory scene, we find Rayne raiding an incredibly dangerous area, interrogating the resident vampires in the location for information about her father.
Where is he, bitch?
These vampires would serve Kagan and refuse to give up any information, calling out for their brothers and sisters to fight against Rayne instead, remaining loyal to the very end. Taking place over a span of 5 years, we first view Rayne during 1933, before later taking control of her in 1938, shortly before World War II. An organisation named the Brimstone Society has opted to employ her in their attempts to prevent supernatural threats from harming civilians, while keeping their own existence hidden from an unsuspecting public. Rayne accepts, receiving aid in the form of intel regarding her father's whereabouts as she engages in missions for the Society. Technically, the differences between both versions include Terminal Cut being hard-coded to run at 60 frames per second, compared to Legacy, which is absolutely broken. Legacy can be run at pretty much any rate, like 400 frames per second, meaning that walls and corners are merely suggestions, wonderful for speedruns. Cutscenes for Legacy are also broken, sometimes refusing to play. This may be down to hardware differences. It seems to be quite common to have issues in Legacy, and most seem to experience firsthand its broken and buggy nature in one way or another. Terminal Cut booted up fine, and this was released with a widescreen fix, so that instantly raises this updated port considerably. Though I did notice, for some reason, if Rayne hits off of a corner seemingly incorrectly, or a Mirage wreck rubs against Rayne the wrong way, she instantly dies in Terminal Cut. It's mysterious, and I'm not sure exactly what causes it, but the same thing can happen in Bloodrayne Legacy. I don't have any better examples recorded, so this clip from a speedrun I attempted will have to suffice. Initially, I just thought the instant death was due to a higher frame rate, but given the hard-coded nature of Terminal Cut, who really knows? It would be nice to find some explanation for it though, as I died twice to the same issue in level 3 of Louisiana, while another glitch got me toward the end. Not exactly the best experience, but I can look by it. Vampires also seem to freak out a little in Germany by learning how to levitate. I guess it can be chalked up to some good old-fashioned jank. As mentioned, prototypes for the game exist, but the PC prototype is locked behind an email, so we won't be exploring that. I found a peculiar little thing while testing the Xbox prototype that got ported over to all versions of Bloodrayne. There's a strange hitbox that, if hit, will deliver far more damage than their weapon should. It's apparent during the mech section, as you can actually see the life bar in the bottom left plummet. I'm unsure what causes this, but can only theorize it's specific to the game's Infernal engine. If anyone has an answer for this, I'd be glad to hear it. Just be careful of corners is the lesson to take from this. The visuals have been drastically improved, with upscaled textures and higher quality cutscenes, better reflections, which have been proudly announced on the game's Good Old Games page, and while I have to agree that they are much nicer compared to Legacy, there is something off about them. They're a little too reflective, in that it looks like I'm staring into a mirror. Enemy graphics have also been improved, no longer appearing green as shown in advertising images on Steam, though I must admit that my copy was purchased after the removal of the issue, so I can't really comment much on that. There's a lot of artifacting going on in cutscenes, with some screen tearing most evident in the last scene of the game. The enemies do seem much shinier than they did in the past. Rain and other characters who appear in cutscenes are more matte and natural, blending in with the environment as they always have. Except in Terminal Cut. Rain also looked shinier than I remember her being. Rain has that same dramatic sheen as enemies in the Xbox prototype as well. While it isn't exactly harming anybody, I can't help but think that it looks wrong. Maybe it's a product of only playing this on the PS2 back in the day through a CRTV. Fog effects are another improvement which Sugard and— wait, why do I keep writing Sugard in the script? Terminal Reality seem quite proud of, and honestly, it looks pretty good. I enjoyed the update here as it greatly adds to the atmosphere. It still swims through walls here and there, though that's also due to the game's age. Rain's health and display icon on the bottom left have been updated to match the other upscaled features, and looks quite nice compared to the blurry legacy version. Visuals now have 4K support, which should be a welcomed addition to those coming in fresh to the game. Just be aware that it might not be entirely stable. You have a choice in either setting up controller or keyboard in Terminal Cut, which has improved support. Keyboard and mouse is personal preference, so that will be explored first. Rain can be controlled with the standard affair for the most part, but they're highly customizable through the options menu. Your choices will appear on screen during tutorial portions to help you further understand how to control our redhead protagonist. By default, W and S keys move Rain forward and back. Strafing is impossible by using the A and D keys. The mouse will allow Rain to turn around in any direction needed. The D-pad arrows are then used to zip through menus. The same adjustments can be made for controller, rebinding keys on the controller as the player deems fit. Issues surrounding controller support in Legacy do exist, so keyboard will probably be required to play it. You also have other abilities such as turning 180 degrees. This can be done on both ground and in air to quickly redirect toward approaching enemies for quicker takedowns. Strafing can similarly evolve into a special move. This helps Rain perform some further gymnastic stunts to avoid enemy fire. This works sometimes, not always, and provides for some eye candy. Rain's jump range depends on how long the user holds down the designated key. She can leap at her highest, or perform a half jump by simply tapping on the key. Interrupting the jumping process is also possible, by performing a kick attack in the air, defying laws of physics. This goes a step further by being able to stretch the amount of airtime by combining slash attacks and kick attacks. You don't stay airborne forever, but it serves its purpose by helping both avoid enemy fire and reaching harder to access areas and levels, sometimes even letting Rain take some shortcuts. The kick attack can be extended into becoming a rebound kick, which is one of the first things we learn in the game. It's used to interact with certain environmental objects to break them down, or even push enemies backwards onto the ground. This prevents them from shooting Rain and giving the player the upper hand in either slashing away at their limbs or attempting to feed. Feeding is naturally important in our vampire game, as it heals any damage Rain takes, bringing her health meter back up. Rain's portrait will change based on damage received. Full Rain is good Rain. Skull Rain means dead Rain. Each enemy offers different levels of health, however. Using Aura Sense will establish how strong and healthy your next meal will be. Some fully mutated enemies may only offer a fraction of the same vitae as another. The diseased locals who haven't fallen to the full extent of the infection may offer even more. Enemies will fight each other at most levels, which depletes any source of nutrition Rain can grab. And the further in-game you delve into, you'll experience human enemies, who will usually give a moderate amount of health, and some more alien forms named Damites, who will actually deliver either a full heal or close to one. You'll just need to get rid of the remaining entity afterwards. Those can survive without a host, casually floating along until they can strangle someone. While feeding, you can turn around creating a meat shield to avoid taking bullets to the back, and you have the option of firing a weapon Rain wields, a chance to take down agents before they can retaliate more. Coming to the end of Louisiana's tutorial section, Mince gifts Rain a harpoon which allows her to reel in enemies from a distance to assist with feeding. Its usage also extends to pulling in enemies, kicking them down, and leaving them struggling to stand back up should you wish to escape. Explaining some last tidbits regarding abilities, you can also attack well in the air, including with Rain's harpoon later in Argentina. A useful tactic as it both damages enemies while causing staggering. Poke them enough and they all fall down. Rain's most mundane attack is slashing away at enemies with her blade weapon. This can be handy while taking the villains by surprise, or off guard. Weapons are divided into light weapons, heavy weapons, throwables, and a special. There's a list of different gun types that you can view inside the player manual, and there's a decent enough selection to find. I'm not sure where Rain is keeping these, but they are useful. A cheat allows you to view all of Rain's stocked artillery until they run out of ammunition, which appears on her back and waist. It's nice witnessing Rain's growing collection as you progress in levels. Aiming is automatic in Bloodrayne, so you don't need to worry about shooting so much. Manual aiming is also possible, by using the zoom in ability. Note that any dropped weapons can also be picked up by enemies and used against you. This is also going to happen during the endgame boss by Wolf. He'll even refill the thing so you can pick it back up. It's great when that happens for finishing off Beliar. You have quite a few, which include the typical God mode and a time altering code. The range runs from standard to kinda funny. Some aren't real cheats, but the game returns a snarky or joking remark after punching them in. I'd recommend messing around with them after a run though. There's also a code to unlock the debug menu and rummage through all available levels. But you can also perform this task on the PC release through different means. One thing that isn't a cheat, however, is the game system. You can find a document explaining this alongside the Bloodrayne script all on Joe Wampole's publicly accessible website. Establishing Rain's abilities and potentially cutting people's heads in half, dismemberment elsewhere, enemies even clutching onto a lost arm as they flee the area or try to crawl away, stronger enemies defending themselves against attacks, but if Rain keeps hacking away, it reduces them to being open for feeding and regular attacks. It's a fairly well done system. If you enjoy more technical sides to games, then definitely download the document file and take a look for yourself. You'll find the link in the description. While Bloodrayne was still in its early phase, with her appearance almost the same as Nocturne's Svetlana, more on that later, an interview with Joe Wampole, Jeff Mills, Fletcher Dunn, and more, sourced from Homeland, posed a question on whether Bloodrayne would have multiplayer support. Jeff Mills had stated that would be very simple to implement in the Infernal game engine, and that both a cooperative experience and deathmatch was on the table. Fletcher Dunn mentioned that no online support was planned, but that a split screen was a likely possibility, but it was too early to say at the time. If Bloodrayne was given more time, maybe we would have seen some of these ideas realized. Nobody but the team can know for sure. The notion of a deathmatch sounds like it could have been a lot of fun. A lot of dialogue seems to have been cut from Bloodrayne. While I only have access to the Xbox prototype, there's a few files left in the PC folders, including excluded lines when glossing at the surface.
Are you here to hold my hand again? Yeah, it's a family trait. I'd just like to walk on my own 2 feet someday.
Naturally, I can't say what idea was scrapped prior to implementation on a test basis, but there is definite cooked content from what can be seen in the game files, which are easily accessed via a cheat code called Dishwasher Attitude Hooker Effigy. Why these particular word arrangements? No idea, I'm just the messenger. Hovering over New, then holding Select while pressing Start on console, or entering on the level cheat, then holding Left Shift while pressing Enter on PC, while hovering over New, or whatever you have set as your select key. This will bring up a menu listing all the levels in the game. There's about 2 levels that are unused, one official area that appears in an altered state, and a regular level that doesn't work through this menu. One area called the Boiler Room, where we usually meet Mauler, is only half-baked here. This may be due to a specific level trigger not having been activated, because otherwise it's the same, just with far less carnage. Or, less likely in my opinion, it's an alternate testing section. Rain is outright stuck in the spawn point in Hell Halls, which is also likely due to a lack of a trigger event, because the lever isn't lit up here. So maybe this theory isn't so far-fetched, but I'm also not much of a programmer, so perhaps someone can also explain that to me. The other 2 sections include a particular location, made accessible through the Brimstone in the Bayou code, and is named LA_Hall, a fully completed level. Meanwhile, the last remaining area appears mostly complete in the Daymite Nest. Only one tunnel is off limits here, and nothing is available to remove the enclosure. This relatively short level simply has Rain rise in an upward direction while using the terrain as a means to ascend, all before landing in the more recognizable playable areas. As the bar in the bottom right fills up, we see Rain's portrait on the bottom left change. Her usual icy eye colour turns red the moment Blood Rage is an accessible ability. Unleashing Blood Rage causes this portrait to animate until it's turned off, which the player can do at will. Blood Rage features an increased damage output that turns the screen red during use. It serves unique movesets as she tears through anybody who dares cross her path, and when the player turns it off, it preserves any bloodlust remaining as shown on the bottom right bars. A full gauge will produce an animated twin blade effect on the meter to notify the player of its newfound ability, along with a message on screen. Slashing at enemies allows the player to fill this meter until Blood Rage can be utilised. A beginning feature is Rain's Aura Sense, which tells her exactly where the next objective is located. This can extend through walls, so some meandering through levels is necessary to meet the target face on. Other abilities include a time-slowing effect called Dilated Perception. This allows Rain to avoid bullets, Matrix style. Another is his zoom ability called Extruded View. This isn't something I used personally until reaching the last boss. It helps when shooting grenade launchers, rockets, and lining up where you want grenades to land. Though you can use this to zoom in on specific locations within the map to make sure you're heading in the right direction. You can only use one ability at a time, so knowing which one is the better option can save this Dampire's life. Lastly, Rain can use her regular blade weapons to slice at enemies, otherwise expect limbs to fly, or cut right through a person's torso. As for the discussion of the story, skip to around here if you don't care. For those that do, Rain is sent on her first mission for the Brimstone Society and receives a mentor named Mince, teaching Rain the tricks of the trade, essentially a tutorial phase. Mince makes mention of Rain's half-sister in the tutorial cutscene, which is a likely nod to Nocturne's and Blair Witch Rustin Parr's Svetlana.
Nice to see you again, stranger.
Where she is featured as being an aide to a character named Stranger. The same half-sister reference is found in the Xbox prototype, as Mince's continuing dialogue comments on this half-sister's temperament.
The pleasantries are just like your half-sister. I'm just glad you're the friendly one.
Svetlana Lupescu, funnily enough translating to wolf from Romanian, likely representing her fierce fighting nature, is an Eastern European half-vampire, shunned but later taken from Romania by a kind household servant to be brought to America, where she would be handed to Nocturne's spook house, being raised by their agents, and later invited to join their ranks. Svetlana assists Stranger in the title Nocturne on his mission inside a village overrun by vampires and other dreaded creatures, uncovering the region's mysteries ultimately. Getting this game going was an odd experience. My monitor would only show me my reflection due to how dark it was, but my laptop showed it fine. My laptop wasn't built for games, so you'll have to forgive any choppiness of my captured footage. While working with Svetlana and Nocturne, we can already see the apparent similarities to Rain thanks to the iconic blade weapons that are used by Svetlana in the same manner. As you work through the flooded Louisiana area, Rain learns more about a disease having overtaken the place, closed off by a wall built 30 feet high. Though it didn't keep the disease from getting in. Townspeople are horribly mutating, but Dampire's can't get sick, which is why Rain and Mince are here. We learn that there's multiple alien-esque birthing spider-like creatures called the Morizrak, and that there's a survivor. Rain rescues further survivors as ordered by Mince, and takes down other Nats and Morizrak while getting rid of the infected. Through directing survivors to the last safe place in the area, we find out a voodoo practitioner teamed up with a German man to raise the mother of the underworld. Rain clears the place, Mince gets forward somehow, and Rain tracks down the root of the infection by following the Morizrak, discovering a giant spidery queen rising from the depths. Hacking away, killing the thing, we uncover a rip relic with mind control powers, forcing Rain to plunge it into her stomach upon picking it up. She passes out and wakes up to a German fire mage who rips her glowing relic from Rain. The Dampire somehow survives, and we see her 5 years later still working for the Brimstone Society. Rain is receiving orders from a mysterious figure named Darkman. We gather intel on what the Germs are doing in Argentina, and find out more information on Wolf. They've made some occult group called the Gegengeist Group to find more relics just like the one in Louisiana. Rain is entrusted with removing high-ranking officers in the GGG, so we do just that. Rain meets a Thule high priest in the process who speaks of Beliar's Eye, hidden in the Daemite nest underground. He babbles on about the lost civilization of Antarctica, and then we battle. After removing him as a target, we grab important documents and chat with Darkman, before proceeding to blow up the communication system needed to do so, in case anybody tries using it. It turns out that the Germans really have uncovered a warehouse full of Daemite creatures. Some lady called the Butcheress was experimenting with the floaty abominations, and since she's on our list of targets, we remove her as one. She's pretty difficult and practically Rain's counterpart, but we leave the Butcheress to enjoy the result of her experiments before burning them all. It's worth mentioning that Daemites featured in Blair Witch 1, Rustin Parr, before Bloodrayne. It seems that Terminal Reality wanted to sneakily involve their prior creations in some manner within the Bloodrayne universe. Blair Witch 1 Rustin Parr is an action-adventure horror game that introduces Daemites. They're seen puppeteering the locals in a similar fashion to Bloodrayne. Blair Witch's Doc Holliday downright mentions her hatred for Daemites. Rustin Parr even includes a Twin Peaks reference with an Agent Cooper lookalike named Hale, who I can't help but include here, who's heard commenting on the pie being served at the local diner.
This must be where pies go when they die. This must be where pies go when they die.
Taken from Season 1, Episode 3, before it takes a turn for the worse.
This must be where pies go when they die. Run, little girl.
We chase down the origins of the Damites. By slicing and dicing our way through these hordes, we reach the underground lair. The Damite nest is home to the much sought after relic by Wolf, just as the priest had said. Rain picks up the crystal eye, and its magical force causes Rain to uncontrollably push it inside her own eye socket. We now have the near useless ability to zoom in on objects. Now we have all the abilities Rain can grab, and each are defaulted to keys 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1 being the key to return back to normal vision, or by using D-pad on controller. A huge vehicle bursts through the organic bark walls of the nest, and it's some troops carrying explosives. Rain unparks it and blows up the nest, but the explosives are encompassing a large radius. So Rain escapes from the entire floor and stumbles upon Mahler, a man who's clearly been augmented. He explains the most important relic has been uncovered in Germany by the GGG, and Wolf is leaving Argentina for it. During this fight we can use Blood Rage for a swift victory. After all is said and done, Rain sneaks onto a departing submarine by hiding in some crates. A figure that looks like Minsk can be seen as we dock in Germany, with some pretty obvious boots just in case you didn't have your magnifying glass on hand. Breaking out of the crate, Rain finds a note briefing her on the next part of her mission. Some guy in a castle has her list of targets. We get a fleshy cutscene where Rain confronts the officer and takes out everybody before hitching a ride to Castle Gstaad. Another Nocturne reference. The current mission now directly involves stopping Wolf, who searches this snowy landscape for the Heart of Beliar. This heart was originally described as the Yathki relic from Nocturne, which legends say it would grant the gift of immortality. As usual, Rain takes down more GGG officers, but they're harder this time. We also have new enemies here, including furry vampires and literal giant bats. Hedrox the Infinite is the more intelligent of the bestial feral vampire clan, running around the area as is home to their kind. Hedrox wants the relic pieces just as much as Rain and Wolf, so he's on a mission too. Also, there's a mech section. We use the metal beast to take down one of the GGG members and then leave. Rain finally meets Mince, who's come back from the dead. She's been working undercover for the GGG this whole time. Mince is another tough battle, but Rain pulls through. Then Mince says goodbye and falls to her death. Further into Germany, Rain battles Hedrox, who clarifies on why he's labelled the Infinite, if we could have weighted him too much during the fight. Boyku is also mentioned here, who is yet another Nocturne reference, though Hedrox escapes from the fight after Rain uses water to mostly remove Hedrox as a threat. Passing through a minefield and crossing a bridge, Wolf strikes Rain as he runs by at a speed not even Rain can race against. We infiltrate the castle Wolf has waltzed inside, and a pair of twins named Simon and Sigmund greet Rain as she makes her way inside. They flirt with the redhead during their altercation, and disclose midway that if Rain injures one, it's the other who takes the wounds instead. So by killing either twin, the other also falls. There's different dialogue depending on who Rain removes first, so there is a slight lie in the beginning of the video about Rain, as she does have some subtle personality traits. Rain can be ice cold and slaughter people without second thought, but only if they're the bad guys. She does seem to carry some empathy, even for the twins, as the last man standing calls for a ceasefire, allowing them to mourn the other's passing. Change in dialogue is Rain giving her name as last request by Sigmund. Simon won't care so much. With both targets down, the ceiling explodes and a ladder falls down for Rain to climb. Reaching the top, it's Mince yet again. Despite the stale trick, she finally tells Rain she was the informant this whole time, and the person having saved Rain 5 years ago in Louisiana. They both attempt to enter the heart of the castle, but a steel barrier drops and Wolf comes out of hiding. He tears out the heart of Mince in front of Rain and invites her to meet him inside the castle with Hedrox, because both have something he wants. Enraged, Rain breaks down the barrier and laments her mentor's passing, before promising vengeance. Rain meets Hedrox and Wolf inside the castle. Turns out Boyku had the Heart of Beliar this whole time, and some GGG member guessed the way to activate the heart for Hedrox. They activate it by throwing it into the center of the castle room, and Beliar is reborn, kills Hedrox with fire magic, and wants his other body parts back. It's 2 against 1 in this match, and Rain can only hurt Beliar by shooting his heart, which requires some precision. Rockets and grenades work too. Shooting Beliar enough causes him to return to his previous form as the unawakened heart. 1 target left. Hitting Wolf here gives some dialogue about vengeance for Mince, but even Wolf remarks on how she should do better than that. So Rain does so by killing him, slicing off every limb, and leaving his head until last, finishing off with giving him the middle finger, then giving both the middle finger. and checking the heart as it cools down, becoming a rock. She kicks it beneath the floor plating and walks away from the scene. Brimstone Society congratulate her and state that they found her father, and that he needs to be stopped. Defeat here gives a special death scene with Bloodrayne breaking through the confines of the castle and embarking on his evil quest. Whether or not you actually kill Wolf here also has an impact on the cutscene, so it's a nice touch. So what about sound? You can redirect sound through whichever piece of equipment you like, which is incredibly rare to find in options menu of this age. Sound is pretty crisp in terminal cut, and it has some pretty moody atmospheric effects and tones overall. In beginning levels you'll hear the odd slowed down church bell, flooding presiding over most effects due to the nature of water levels, but you also feel just how lonely you can be. A frog's croak might be sparsely audible, but otherwise only crickets are there to keep Rain company, right before the Marizrek rise from the ground of course. Argentina easily has the most eerie and ominous design of the game.
Nazis want to come out and play? Come on now. I promise.
Thanks to the fleshy noodle infestation. Weapon shots and background music may need some altering, because gun effects are sometimes either too loud or too underwhelming in volume. As for the actual sound clips, generally speaking, they're all good choices. High pitches and clanging can be heard depending on what surface bullets land on if Rain misses a shot. The clashing of Rain's blades against environments can also be satisfying, mostly in the unique sound applied when cutting up a certain kind of flag. Things delve deeper in the hierarchic order of the chapel space, where the choir sings its unholy songs.
Oh, just taking care of a collection from the...
While the OST does come with the official tracks, the background music really should have been included, so that we could fully appreciate what the composer Kyle Richards, and potentially Tommy Tallarico, and I add potentially to Tommy as he's never mentioned anywhere in the game credits. Though the IMD page does make mention of his involvement. GameFAQs mentions Tommy, but only on the GameCube release. Moby Games on the other hand claims he worked on all ports, and they have him listed on their website. And the links on Tallarico's website, crediting games he's worked on, it lists all 5 versions of Bloodrayne made, not just GameCube. These links from the official website go straight to the Wikipedia page that doesn't credit him anywhere in Bloodrayne at all. So what's going on? Did he offer a music sample and simply wasn't mentioned? Was he only briefly involved like with Metroid Prime? Is it a Tommy tale? I'm hoping I just accidentally glossed over something here. Where the sound design really began to shine for me was during the introduction of Daymites. Screams becoming silence, becoming something more, otherworldly laughter circling Rain in both an intimidating and toying manner. Daymites slither and slink around in the distance. They're waiting for you and you dread every moment of it because of the sound design. There's the eerie silence and later potential of becoming overwhelmed by the chorus of insect-like cries. Both pained and otherwise. Low and hollow heartbeats present themselves in the nest, signaling that this entire tree-like infrastructure is alive. Its rhythm complements the clouded rumbling readily apparent in the design, though the contrast might be found in these somehow adorable sounding flaring eyeball creatures that control the opening and shutting of the organic doors. Harmony between the organic and industrial is all over the place in Germany, and it makes sense given how much is actually organic versus the industrial impact that is given by the Germans. While the official OST can be somewhat generic in parts in Bloodrayne, the atmospheric tracks can be pretty effective at portraying an uneasy or creepy feeling as you take in the surroundings, especially the Daymite nest and in the final boss, where Rain is up against this weird metallic being who's just forged by the element of fire, clanking around trying to retrieve what is his. The visual atmospheric aspect has also been pretty well done. Despite the standard Nazi takedown affair, you have little inclusions such as bats to add to the environment. Terminal Cut did mess them up, so they just look like little clumps of rocks in the air. Approaching them can sometimes fix this bug, but they function in both Legacy and even the Xbox prototype. Otherwise, the areas are dull and drab to suit swampy areas, with broken telephone poles and tiny little moths fluttering around light sources. These tiny details really do come together. Remaining additions of fog and smoke simply finalize the image of the area, completely torn asunder and empty of hope. Argentina is a base built into the mountains, so there isn't really much to comment for the most part. It's your basic enemy fort for most of it, though when things start crashing down around Rain, you'll notice the lighting actually being one of the first things to redeem this section, in a way before eventually stumbling into the ancient alien nests, and then it just becomes more emphasized. As you enter the Daymite holding chambers, things quickly change into this experimental area, courtesy of the Butcheress, containing a host of both Daymites and unfortunate lab subjects. They can easily break out of their fragile glass containers, and possessed bodies breaking out of the morgue holding places. Heading further down, wherever they came from, you'll eventually find commonly unremarkable boss areas in the base, some exceptions being the battle against the GGG targets who had their bodies possessed behind protective glass, forcing you to either shoot through or kick through the barriers. The Butcheress is easily the most memorable fight and location, with a fenced-off area featuring electrified flooring that opens into a Daymite pit. Once defeating the Butcheress, you can take in the elements a little more. Even jumping down into the experimental pit, you'll find it's filled with Daymites that are now mostly dead, thanks to flaming them. Tons of gore decorate the floor, due to the immense amount of test subjects flung down here. The area is dark and pretty disturbing, and venturing forth, there comes the mines, where Rain witnesses an ensuing battle between the German troops and these alien creatures. Again, the lighting just comes through here. This section of Argentina is otherwise largely forgettable, consisting of a regular objective to obtain explosives and detonation charges to barge through into areas the GGG attempted to block off. Pressing in toward the heart of the matter, we come across a special enemy type called a Guardian, a strong creature that appears as 3 large and conjoined Daymites with some longer hands. Use Blood Rage to easily take care of these things, but just look at their design, it's pretty good, just like with the Daymites. Take a look at the concept art. As you enter the Daymite nest, the air changes to an organic scene of living tree caves, with Daymites and Daymite Guardians running wild here. Even the music really emphasizes the truly alien landscape Rain has found herself caught up in. At the center of it all is the heart, a cave of the same tree bark with pustules that spit out a poisonous green gas, and Daymites if you get close to them. In the middle of the area is a medium construct, held in place by the same tree-like branch extensions, created by this alien race. Even just listening to the tracks that play here, it suits the imagery perfectly. The atmosphere in Germany is generally presented by the snowy area, with that kind of fog effect also still present in the air. The energy of the battles between both the German troops and the vampires is also pretty complementary, so it actually makes the area generally interesting enough, but it's not as good as Argentina. But again, that's just personal preference. Being able to tear down certain objects around the areas, including in Germany, is also pretty good. This mechanic is made ample use of in the windmill section, and you can see why. It actually suits the fight pretty well. Just to be fully transparent, I didn't really make many notes for Germany, so you can kinda see my Argentinian bias shine through here. But I do actually like the mech section. Even the atmosphere here is genuinely pretty good. Obviously it's a cathedral section, so you're gonna get that type of display here. But with the statues and all the other chaos that's going on, I think it actually goes pretty well together. There's a lot more that can be said about Bloodrayne, and extra lore such as Voiku from Nocturne, and even a Svetlana storyboard, stating Bloodrayne Intro 2000. But if I did that, then this video will be a little too long. In any case, it's probably time to draw up a conclusion. Ratings for this game were quite mixed, and I can easily see where people can find it tasteless, but it's a hack and slash adventure I personally enjoy, so I'll easily recommend it. The controls are definitely flawed on console, so if you're a PC player then you might be in luck. Keys might still need some adjusting, and depending on hardware, you might have some complaints. It's also pretty pricey for its age and amount of content, so wait for a sale, and perhaps grab the bundle containing Bloodrayne 2, it's more bang for your buck. If you really want to try it on console however, you're going to be paying considerably less than a second-hand copy. Definitely give it a shot. I don't really have much of a rating system, so I'd mark it maybe a 6 or 7 out of 10. Thanks for watching. I guess if you enjoyed this, leave a like or something. I'm not going to force anyone to do anything, but thanks for sticking it out this long if you have. Until the next one. See you then.